Hello, my name is Kevin Coulter, and thank you for coming to view this demonstration on how Sage ERP X3 can be utilized as a business management solution for a brewery. So in the demonstration here today, we're going to be taking a look at a scenario of a brewery that manufactures three different types of beers, and the brewery serves as a fulfillment center for the company's two tap rooms, as well as a series of different external distributors and bars. Okay, so let's go ahead and start by taking a look at the organizational structure within the system. So if we come under the setup menu here, then come to organizational structure, then to the companies. So in here in the companies, the name of our demo company is called American Brewing Company. And if I come over here to the Sites tab, I can see that American Brewing is composed of these four different entities. We have a headquarters facility through which the financial operations for the company run. We have a brewer house, which is going to serve as the manufacturing and primary warehousing facility. And we have two different tap rooms that sell beer on behalf of the organization to the local communities. Okay, so that is the layout of our company. And as I was mentioning earlier, there's three different types of beer that this company sells. So if I come under my common data menu, then down to products, then here to my product master files. Here is a listing of our products. So as we can see here, in terms of our finished goods, we have a lager that we sell in both the form of a keg as well as a case. The company has an IPA product that we sell again in those two forms. Then in addition to that, there is a stout product that the company sells. Okay, so in our demonstration here, the orders that you see will be processing for those three different products. Okay, so I want to start the demonstration by showing you some of the manufacturing tools that X3 would have to offer you. So let's start by taking a look at the demand forecasting. So if I come under my manufacturing menu, then down under planning to demand forecast. All right, so in here, we're going to take a look at how to load a demand forecast for the two tap rooms. Okay, so in here, I'm going to come over and go to my show my list. And in this case, the tap rooms, they're just going to be ordering the keg products. So my two tap rooms, my TR01 for the Randall Hill tap room. You can see here they placed a demand for the stout, the IP, and the lager. Over here in the grid section here, you can see that I have a forecast loaded in for the first quarter of our 2018 fiscal year. And the forecast is laid out. We basically need 10 kegs per month of the lager. If I was so inclined, I could go ahead and split that forecast out into weekly buckets, but in this case I'm just booking a monthly demand in the system in the first week. Okay, we lay out a similar demand for the IPA kegs, the lager kegs. Then for our other tap room here, our State Street tap room, a similar thing. Okay, so now that we have the demand forecast loaded into the system, being that the tap rooms are integrated with the brew house, what we'll be able to see here is we can run what we call MRP for the two tap room facilities. Then X3 will automatically generate inner site fulfillment orders, so that the brew house basically is put on notice that the tap rooms need these number of kegs. Then the brew house can integrate that into their planning process at the production facility. Okay, so in order to make all that happen, all you really need to do is, if you come under your manufacturing menu, then under planning, we'll go to MRP processing. In here for my stocking sites, I'm going to reference my 2 tap room sites. Come over here and click on OK. That will go ahead and generate all the suggestions for the transfers. Then, if I come back to my main menu, in order to kind of firm up those transfer suggestions, all I need to do is come under the purchasing, down to my supply, then here to my grouping workbench. In here, I'm going to choose the entry transaction for the tap room order suggestions. Come over to my right-hand panel, click on search. Then down here in my requirements list, I can see the demand for all those kegs coming from my forecast. All right, so I might not be interested in fulfilling the requirements for out into February and so forth. Maybe I only want to take action on the current requirements. So I could go ahead and here set a cutoff date, run my search, it'll reload the table, and that will kind of skinny up my list to just service the needs for the January accounting period. All right. So next, I'll just come over here into my right-hand panel, and I'm going to click on the Generate button. The X3 is going to return a log file to me. And on this log file, it's going to indicate to me that it created some purchase orders, 2 different inner site purchase orders with a respective sales order that's going to go on my brewhouse books. Okay. So at this point, I can go ahead and close page out of here. So to view those purchase orders, back at my main menu, I can come to Purchasing, then Orders and Orders. Then in here, I can see the 2 new purchase orders that were created. So here, the first purchase order from the Randall Hill Tap Room, purchase order number 7 to the Brewhouse facility. Then over here on the Lines tab, I have the products, the kegs that are being purchased, 10 per. Okay, the second PO up here is from the State Street Tap Room, and again, to service the demand at that facility. All right, very good. So let's go ahead and close page out here to the main menu. So next, let's take a look at some of the master production scheduling tools that the brewmaster at the brew house can utilize to make determinations on what he needs to produce here in the coming months. So to that end, what we're going to start off with is running the master production scheduling program. So to do that, we're going to come under manufacturing once again, down to planning, then go here to the MPS processing. And in this case, for my stocking site, I'm going to put in our production facility and come over here and click on OK. So what that MPS program did, it basically went through and generated work order suggestions for us. So basically it did a net requirements calculation saying, okay, if this is the demand that's being placed on the production facility, let me take a look at my present inventory levels that I have on hand, as well as any other open work orders that I might have in process. And if the demand exceeds the inventory on hand, plus my open production orders, go ahead and suggest for me an additional a series of work orders to fill those shortages. Okay, so if we want to take a look at those suggestions, we can come under the manufacturing menu to planning, then here to enterprise planning. We'll go ahead and specify our production site and do a search. All right, so you can see here are the series of work order suggestions for the lager, the IPA, and the stout, for the kegs. Then in addition to that, down here you can see that it also generated work order suggestions to make the batch, the bulk of the beer that would in part fill these kegs. All right, so those are the suggestions that are put forth. So what we're going to do here next is to convert these work order suggestions into planned work orders. Then we'll go in and take a look at the basically the different work centers to make sure that we have adequate capacity to process all these jobs. And if not, we can take a look at how to kind of juggle the production schedule, pulling certain work orders in, pushing certain work orders out to kind of level load our brew house. All right, so let's go ahead and close page out of here. Okay, so back at the main menu, we're going to come to manufacturing, then down here to batch processes, then over to automatic release. Go ahead and specify our production site. Here are the work orders that we're processing, or the suggested work orders, and we're going to convert them into planned work orders. And we'll go ahead over here and click on OK. All right, the next 3 is going to return to us a log file showing us all the planned work orders that were generated now in the system. All right, so let's go ahead and close page out of here. Okay, so next here, we're going to go ahead now and run the scheduling of these work orders. So to do that, we're going to come under our manufacturing, to batch processing, then over here to scheduling. Again, we specify our production site. We can indicate that we want to schedule all work orders throughout the month, and these are going to be on the new planned work orders that we just generated. We'll come over here and click on OK. The next 3 will return to us a log file of all the work orders that it just scheduled. All right, so let's go ahead and close back to the main page. So next here, let's take a look at our work centers in our production process and see if we have ample capacity to satisfy these planned orders. So if I come under my manufacturing, then here to technical data, then to work centers. Here are the work centers in my manufacturing process. I have a heating tank to heat up the water that in part will be transferred over to one of 3 mash tanks. From there, the wort will be transferred over to the one of 3 boiling vessels. Once it's boiled for an hour, then the solution will be transferred over to one of 21 fermentation tanks. Then after the fermentation process is completed, then the alcohol, the beer, will be transferred over to a packaging line where it'll either be put into kegs or into bottles that will be cased. Then we also have a sanitation step here to wipe down all the equipment at the conclusion of the process. So in here, let's start with the heating tank. If I come over here to the load tab, in here I have a schedule, and I can see on my schedule here, let's whittle it down a little bit. Here's my planned work orders. I can see that this is a planned work order versus it being a firm work order. So for the heating tank, we run 5 days a week, 16-hour days. So based upon these planned orders, that would only incur 5 hours of utilization. Next to the mash tank, here again we have 3 different mash tanks. And again, running a 16-hour day, that means that there's 48 hours of availability, Monday through Friday. And in this case, we're only using 7 hours. Next here to the boiling vessels, similar thing, 3 boiling vessels, only using about 10.5 hours of that capacity. The fermentation, again, our 21 tanks, just using a very nominal amount of that. Over here on our packaging lines, again, we have the one packaging line available 16 hours a day. We need just a touch over 5 hours. For our sanitation processes, we need 10.5 hours, so we're good there. Then here for our labor work center also, we have 3 different people that run in the brewery. So to run these batches, we're going to need 42 hours of total time of the 48 available, man hours available. So we should be covered there also. So from a capacity perspective, I think we're doing very good. So next, let's go ahead and close here out to the main menu. And let's take a quick look at one of the planning workbenches that we have that will show you the work orders and kind of show you how easy it is here to judge the production schedule as we have need. So if I come under my manufacturing, back down to our planning, then I can come here to modify objectives. In here, I'm going to go ahead and pull up our production site once again. I'm going to pull it up just for our planned work orders. And I'll come here, do my OK. Now I have a little workbench here that shows me all the planned work orders. So here's the one for the brew process, all my various batches of beer that I'm making. Then here's my 3 filling work orders here, okay, to fill up the kegs. So given our tight production schedule, X3's, attempting to squeeze it all in, but we're going to kind of juggle the schedule here a bit. So I can see here that the brew process for the lager, the IPA, and the stout, those work orders will conclude on the 19th. So I'm gonna, for my fill orders, I'm gonna go ahead and change the start date for those ones here to the 19th. So after I update the start date on my three fill orders, I'm going to come over and click on the Save button in the right-hand panel, and that will serve to update those planned work orders with a new start date. And we can exit back to our main menu. So the next step in our process, now that those planned work orders have been scheduled, is to convert them over to firm work orders that the production team can now take action on. So to do that, I'm going to come under my manufacturing, down to batch processing, then over to my automatic release, specify my production site. The work orders to process are going to be my planned work orders, and the new status of these work orders are going to be firm. And I'll come over here and click on my OK button. Then X3 will return to me a log file indicating to me all the planned work orders that now have been converted over to a firm status. All right, so let's go ahead and close page here, back to the main menu. So now the next thing that we need to concern ourselves with is to make sure that we have adequate raw materials on hand to produce these work orders. So to do that, we're going to run the material requirements planning program within X3. So to do that, we're going to come under manufacturing block, here to planning, then down to MRP processing. For our site here, we're going to put our brew house site, then simply come over here and click on OK. X3 in part will generate a log file for us telling me that the MRP process has run. And now X3 should have generated a series of purchase order suggestions for any raw materials that we were short. So let's close page here to go back to the main menu. So next, to take a look at those purchase order suggestions that have been generated by MRP, we're going to come under the purchasing menu, then to supplies, into the grouping workbench. I'm going to choose the entry transactions for the raw material order suggestions. Then come over here and click on the search button. Now what we'll see down here in the requirements list is basically for all the work orders that we generated, here are your raw material needs. Okay, so we got the kegs, the empty kegs, bottles, case packaging, malt, hops, yeast, and another order here for kegs with a different requirement date. Okay, so you see the PO date, the expected receipt date, and you also have the quantity in here. Okay, so to generate the purchase orders for this, all I need to do is come over here and click on the Generate button. Then X3 will generate a log file indicating all the purchase orders that have been generated in the process. So let's go ahead and close back to the main page. So to view these purchase orders, we can go to Purchasing, Orders, then Orders. Then here's going to be a register of all the POs that were generated. So you got your PO number, the supplier, the default supplier associated with the product. Over here on the Lines tab, you have the products that were purchased, along with their quantities, expected receipt dates, and pricing information from the price book. Okay, so to print out the purchase orders, I can come over to my print icon and come to Record. Then in here, if I want to print out all my purchase orders that I generated today, let me go ahead and just remove those filters, and I'll just filter on all new orders created on the 13th. Click on the print button. And here is the purchase orders that were printed out. So you got your PO number, the date of the order, the supplier, where the goods need to be shipped to, payment term, along with all the particulars on the PO. Okay, so you can go ahead and send these off to your suppliers. All right, so let's go ahead and close out of here and go back to the main page. So the next step in the process would be, once the supplier fulfills the purchase order and they ship you the product, you want to go ahead and check that inventory into your warehouse. So you'll do that through what we call a purchase receipt within X3. So that's going to be under your purchasing menu. And down under receipts, we're going to come over, click on the new button, specify our receiving site. Then here in the left list, I'm going to come to my purchase order selection tray, and there's going to be a listing of all my open POs. So I can go ahead and click on them. And that will load all the product details. At this point, I could go ahead and update the quantities if they ship me something different than what was requested on the PO. Then I can come over and click on the Create button. And that goes ahead and assigns it a receipt number. Okay, and that in part will update my perpetual inventory at this point. We'll click on New to check in the next order. For the malt, we'll do our Create. Oh, this malt product's lot controlled, so it's prompting me for my supplier's lot number. So I'll go ahead and define that therein. Do our New for our next one. This one is for our hops. This one is also lot controlled. Specify our lot number. And our final one here is for our yeast. And that too is a lot controlled product. Okay, so those are all my receipts against my purchase orders. Now at this point, oftentimes folks will print out what we call a purchase receipt note, and they'll provide this receipt note either to the accounting department so that they can be on the lookout for an invoice coming from the supplier, and or the quality control department so they know to that we have some new product on hand that they need to QC approve. So to print out the purchase receipt notes, I can come over to my printer icon, then come to Record. Then in this case, I want to go ahead and print out all my receipt notes for product that I checked in on the 13th. So I'll go ahead and update those filters there. Then come over and click on the Print button. And here are my purchase receipt notes. I have my receipt identification number, the date of the receipt, the site that it was received into, my supplier. Then I have all the particulars on my products, the product quantities, the PO cross-reference, and if the goods are lot controlled, I'll also have visibility to the lot numbers. Okay, so let's go ahead and close that up now, and close that page back out to the main menu. So the next step in the process would be to go through and create labels to apply to our raw material products so that our warehouse personnel can easily identify the raw materials when they're picking the products in the production process. So to print out the receiving labels, we're going to come under Stock, Labeling, then to print stock labels. In here we'll specify the stock site. The entry type, we're going to set that to receipt. Then we'll come over and click on search. We might want to further filter this just to receipts that were booked today. Then that will load our grid down here with all the products that were received in. Now in this case, I don't want to print out labels for the packaging, but rather just the lot controlled raw material. So in here, I'm going to go ahead and flip these settings over to no. Then just on these last three here, I'll click on yes to print out the stock labels for them. Okay, so we'll come over, click on print. And this in part will generate our labels that we could print out to a zebra printer. Okay, so here are the labels for the bags of malt that we received in. You have your product ID, the description, the lot number, the date of the receipt. Here's the lot number in a barcoded format. You have the receiver number that the goods were brought in on, as well as a quality control status currently of Q, indicating that these goods have not been approved as of yet by the quality control department. So that there would be a red flag for one of your warehouse personnel to not choose this product for a work order until they see a label on the goods that have an A status, meaning that the goods have been approved. Okay. So as it relates to the quality control, let's actually look at the quality control workbench so that we can approve these goods. So we're going to close up our labels. So to perform the quality control, we're going to come under Stock, Quality Control, Quality Control. Then over here on my left-hand list, we have the QC request for our products. So this first one here is for our malt product. And I can see that this product at present is in a Q status. So what I'm going to need to do is to fill out the QC sheet to confirm that everything's up to snuff here. So I'll click, go to my quality record. Then there's three questions that I need to ask. The first question, is there a sufficient amount of use by date lead time? And for that one, we're going to say yes. Question number two, is there any visible damage on the containers or on the bags or the cartons that they came in? For that one, I'm going to say no. Then the final one is prompting me to specify a country of origin. I'm going to say USA. We'll go ahead and save it. At this point, we'll be permitted to specify the number of units, in this case 22 bags, that now have a QC status of A, meaning that they're available to use. We'll go ahead and save it. Go to our next product here, the hops, and it has the same series of questions here. finally for the yeast. Okay. At this point, if I want to generate any paperwork for those the results of my QC analysis, I can come over and click on my print icon, then go to Record. Print out my 3 QCs that I filled out. Set the parameter that I want to see the lot details. Then go ahead and click on Print. And there is my quality control result sheet. So for the malt product with this lot number, I approved 22 bags that were originally in a Q status, and here are the answers to my QC questions. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and close this. Close back out to the main page, and now let's go ahead and print our QC labels so that we can now communicate to our warehouse personnel that these goods are of an A status. So once again, we're going to come under Stock, Labeling, Print Stock Labels, specify our site once again, quality control type there. Do our search. Go ahead and reprint new QC labels for our lot controlled items. Do our print. Alright, so there's our fresh new labels, and as you can see now, lot information again, you know, the number of units, the barcode, and most importantly on this one, now we have an indicator on the label to tell the warehouse that these goods have been approved through quality control. So let's go ahead and close this up and go back out to our main page. Okay, so now that the goods have been received and the goods have been approved and we've determined that they're of a, you know, a good status, we're going to need to pay our supplier for these goods. So next, let's take a quick look at how we enter in a purchase invoice into the system. So for this, we're going to go to Purchasing, Invoices, then to Invoices. We'll go ahead and click on the New button. Our invoices are going to be all input through the headquarters site. Come down here and specify our supplier's account number. Down here on the Management tab, we input the date from our supply, you know, the invoice documentation, as well as our supplier's invoice number. Here on the Lines tab, I'm going to come over here and click on my receipt selection tray to perform my three-way matching. And there's my receipt identifier. We'll go ahead and click on that. That will go ahead and load in all the details relative to my received quantity and my PO price. Back here on the Management tab, I'm going to want to make sure that that ties out to what I'm being billed for. Then we can come over here and go to Create. And then we can click on the Post button to post the item. Okay, let's go ahead and do a couple of these here. Click on the receiver again. This invoice is going to be for the $770. And this last invoice for $220. Okay. So let's go ahead and close here and go back out to the main page. So next, let's say that we want to turn around and pay those invoices. So in X3, we can generate our weekly AP check runs through our APAR accounting, payments, then in here to payment proposal. Specify our company, specify our cutoff date on all the liabilities that we want to settle. Then over here on the generation tab, we'll specify the bank account from which we wish to withdraw the funds. Come here, click on OK. That pulls up our payment workbench. Shows us in this case we have 3 different checks that are going to be issued, totaling a little over $1,100. Through my select column, I could flag invoices to be paid versus not. And I could also update the amount on the invoice that I wish to pay. Okay. In this particular case, we're just going to say we wish to pay everything. So we'll come over and click on the Create button. And that part generates a log file for us, indicating to us the payment records that have been created in the system. Okay, so now let's go take a look at those payment records. We'll close page here. And go back to APAR accounting, payments, then to payment receipt entry. And we're going to come under this entry transaction here, the automatic check issue. Alright, so here's my 3 payment records in my left-hand list. Again, showing the supplier who's being paid, the total amount of the check, as well as the invoices that are being paid. So to print out the checks for these payments, we're going to come to our print icon in the right panel, then go to Record, choose our check prints, and we'll go ahead and print out our full range of checks here. Come over here and click on the Print button. Alright, and here are the check reports. 3 different checks for the different suppliers. Okay, so now we have everything settled up with the suppliers. Let's go ahead and close page here and go back out to our main menu. Alright, so now that we have the raw materials on hand, the next step in the production process is to go ahead and allocate those raw materials against the respective work orders that require them. So to perform the allocation process, we can do that in batch by coming under our manufacturing menu, then going to batch processes, then allocation. We'll specify our production site, And here we'll say we wish to allocate raw materials to all work orders that have a requirement date through the 28th of this month. And we'll go ahead and do a detailed lot allocation. Once those parameters are set, we can come over and click on OK. The next three will give us a log file indicating to us all the raw materials, the required quantity, and the work orders to which they were allocated. In the event that we had any shortages, some insufficiencies in raw materials, that would be reflected in the shortage column here. Okay, so that's our allocation step. Let's go ahead and close page back to the main menu. So now the next step in the manufacturing process is to print out the work order forms and quality control sheets for our production department so we can communicate to them what goods are required on the work orders and what our production expectations are. So if I come under the manufacturing menu, I'm going to come under planning, then to work order. Over here in my right panel, I'm going to come down under the report option for work order documents. I'm just going to print all the paperwork en masse here. Then I'm going to come over and click on the print button. So this work order paperwork, as I said, is going to provide our production team with detailed instructions on what they're making. So here on this work order number 74, here's the expected starting and ending date. You have the product that's to be produced as well as the quantity of the product. You have the first operation for heating the water. You have setup and runtime metrics on there. It communicates to them what raw materials are required at that stage in the process. And it also has instructions on, in this case, what the ideal temperature of the water should be. Come down to the second step in the process, which would be transferring the heated water over to the mash tank. We have the runtime metrics at the mash tank. The raw materials that are needed at this stage being the malt. On this document here, it instructs the warehouse personnel what particular lot of malt that they should choose for the job, using the materials on a FIFO basis. Additional production notes on this work order step. Next step in the process is to boil the wort. And again, at this stage we would be adding the hops into the mix. Once that step's been created, the goods are then transferred over to the fermentation tank, where the yeast is added. Okay. Then the last stage in the process is to sanitize the equipment. Okay. So again, a work order document would be generated for each batch of product that would be produced. All right, so let's go ahead and close that up and go back out to the main page. So the next step in the manufacturing cycle is to perform the production tracking records against the work orders. So for this example, we'll go ahead and do the production tracking against the stout work orders for the batch production as well as the keg packaging. Okay, so it's going to be through these production tracking records that we consume the raw materials onto the job, that we declare the amount of time that we've spent on the job, as well as declaring the amount of finished good that has been produced. So to do this, let's come to our manufacturing option, then go to production tracking and production tracking. We'll click on our New button and specify our production site. Then for our work order here, let's go ahead and choose our work order number 74. Then we're going to start by coming down onto the Operations tab. So in here are the 5 steps to our production process. And if I scroll to the right, we have the actual amount of setup time and the actual amount of run time that is defaulting in from our production routing record. Okay, so if for whatever reason we spent an amount of time different than what was declared at standard here, we could go ahead and update these metrics to update our direct labor cost on the job. Now, in addition to that, on these operations, we have quality control questions that we wish to answer. So for instance, on the first step of the job, if I come into my technical sheet, it prompts me to answer the question, was the water heated within the proper range? So I could, based upon my work order, the temperature should have been between 168 and 170. So I could come in here and put in one of those values. Now in addition, if I put in a value outside of that range, I'm going to get a warning message here indicating that this is an answer outside of the range, and it's going to hold me up in my QC process. Stage 2 of the process on the mash tank also has a technical sheet. Does the mash have the proper sugar content? For this one, we're going to say yes. Then here, after the fermentation step, what was the alcohol content? We'll put in here 7%. So those are that's our operation declaration. Over here on the manufacturing tab, this is where we declare the number of gallons of the product that's been produced. And we'll declare that in the total achieved quantity here. So we'll say 100 gallons were made. Then finally, over here on the components tab, this is where the raw materials, their respective quantities, and the lot numbers were consumed. Okay? So upon creation of this production tracking record, we're going to be decrementing these raw materials out of stock and introducing into inventory that finished, or that intermediate product in this case that was made. So let's go ahead and do that. So next in here, let's go ahead and do the tracking on the filling work order, the keg filling. Select our work order. Okay, so in this case we have one step on this routing, which is just the packaging routing. Over here on the manufacturing tab, we have the declaration of the number of kegs that are going to be filled. Then finally here on the Components tab, this is where we can go to consume the number of empty kegs and the amount of the batch that was previously manufactured. Okay, then we can come over here and click on our Create button to do those declarations. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and close page here. Now at this point, we can go ahead and run our quality control process for the kegs that were produced. So to do that, we're going to come under our stock, quality control, and quality control. There's my QC request for the 6 kegs. Come down and do my quality record. And the quality control test, in this case, was for the after the second fermentation cycle, does the beer have the proper amount of carbonation? So I'll come over here and say yes to that. Once I declare that, I can come over and indicate the number of kegs that have been approved. And we'll go ahead and save. Okay, so let's go ahead and back out to the main page. At this point now we can go ahead and print the stock labels. So for that we'll come to stock, labeling, and print stock labels. Entry type will be for our quality control. Okay, so these are going to be the labels for the stout kegs here. We'll go ahead and set that line to yes, then come over and print. And there are my labels for the kegs that were produced. Again, we have the quality control approval number as well as the A here to designate that these kegs have passed the quality control process, product description, and the barcode with the lot. Okay, so that kind of takes us end to end through the manufacturing process. Next, let's take a look at the sales order fulfillment process within the X3 system. So let's go ahead and close this and end back out to the main page. So let's start by taking a quick look at the sales orders that we have in the system. So if I come under my sales, then orders, and orders. In here I can see that I have a number of open work orders over here, many of which have a shipping date of being due. So on the sales order, you have the customer PO, the customer to who you're selling the product. Over here on the delivery tab, you have the required delivery date, the mode of transportation. The invoicing tab shows you the payment terms associated with the sale. In this case, we have a little bit by way of an additional freight adder. Then over here on the lines tab, this reflects the products and the quantity of those products that are being sold, as well as the respective pricing information. Okay, so one of the required steps in the system to process a sales order before we can do the picking and everything is that we have to perform a allocation step on the sales order, basically meaning we're reserving inventory against the sales order. So a quick and easy way that we can do that is if we come under our sales menu, then come to allocations, then automatic allocations. Go ahead and specify the site from which we're shipping the product. We have a cutoff date. We'll say let's allocate all orders that are scheduled to ship through today's date. Then we'll come over here and click on OK. The X3 will generate a little log file for us indicating to us all the sales orders that have been allocated, as well as the allocation. Then in the event that we had any shortages, that would also be reflected herein. Okay? So we got the sales orders allocated. Let's go ahead and end back out to the main menu. The next step in the process here is that we want to generate the picking tickets in the preparation plan. So basically to communicate to the warehouse personnel what goods they need to start assembling to transport to the customers today. So to do that, we'll come under our sales, shipment preparation, then generation of the preparation lists. Okay, specify our site and our cutoff date. Down here at the bottom, I'm going to click on the box to go ahead and generate the picking tickets along with the preparation plan. Come over here to the right-hand panel and click on OK. Then again, X3 returns to me a log file indicated that it's generated shipment preparation plan 002, and here are all the sales orders that are on that preparation plan. And in addition to that, I have my associated picking tickets that go with it. Okay, so let's go take a look at those. Go ahead and close page out of here. So next here, let's take a look at that preparation list. So I can come under my sales menu to shipment preparations in the preparation plan. Here in my preparation list, I'll go ahead and pull that up. Then down here in the stock to be prepared, it gives me a detailed register of all the sales orders with their associated picking list number and the products that are being picked. So at this point, I can come over print, and this will generate a report for me that I can give to my warehouse personnel, basically communicating to them all the different products that need to be assembled for the delivery. Okay. Alternatively, I can print out the individual picking tickets if I have like many people engaged in the picking process. To do that, if I close out of here, under the shipment preparation, I'll come to our picking tickets. So in here on the picking tickets, I can see I have an individual pick ticket here for each sales order that I had. I can come over, click on the print icon, then come to record. Then in this case, I just want to generate all the pick tickets for everything that's presently in process. Okay, come over here and click on print. Then that in part will generate this form for me that I can again distribute to my warehouse personnel. So this is everything that needs to be picked for Murray's beer. Here's everything for Carnegie Beer and More, and right on down the line. So next, once the warehouse personnel go through the step of picking everything for the order, what they would do is you could come down here once they deliver the goods down to the shipping floor. At that point, they can come over here on the picking ticket and click on this deliverable button. And that in part will set the picking ticket into a stage such that now we can create the delivery records against them. All right, so let's go ahead and do that, then we'll close back out here to the main menu. So the next step in the process would be to go ahead and create all the delivery records for those picking tickets. So to do that, we'll come under our sales block, then here to deliveries, and to pick ticket deliveries. We'll specify our company and our shipping site. We'll do picking tickets through today's date. Then down here, if I wanted to go ahead and print out the packing slips along with, as I generate this process, I could just click on this delivery note field here, specify my report and destination, and that would output it for me. We'll go ahead and do an OK. Now we have our log file here indicating to us all the delivery records that were generated. So let's go ahead and close page out of there and go ahead and take a look at those. So sales, deliveries, and deliveries. Then here are my new delivery records for each of my customers for the products that I'm shipping out to them. Okay, so next let's go ahead and package these deliveries. So let's go ahead and close page here. So there's a couple different ways to do the packaging within X3. One way is to come under our stock, then go to packaging and declared packing. We'll specify our site, then do our OK. Specify our package there, then come over to our delivery lines. So for this order, we have a total of 15 kegs that we're transporting. Let's say for discussion that we can do up to 10 per pallet. So I'll put these first two lines on one, do the save, do the new button, select this second one for the remaining 5, and do the save on that. Okay, so that's how we can specify that. For our delivery number 5 here, again, we got a similar situation, a total of 15. So we'll do our pallet, grab the first 2, and just save. Package up the remaining 5 cases on a secondary pallet. Okay. On this one we just have a total of 9, so this can all go on one. Here we got 12. So we'll do 8 kegs on one, then 4 on the other. Alright, so that should complete it for packaging all our products that we're shipping. So let's go ahead and end out to the main menu. So next here, let's go ahead and print out the pallet labels. So for this one, I'm going to go to stock, then labeling, and print packing labels. Choose my delivery number. Say that I want the stock detail on here. And we'll come over and print. And that in part will generate a label, so I can apply that to the pallet as kind of its license plate. telling us, who sent the goods, who's the recipient. You have the total weight of the pallet, the number of kegs on the pallet, your delivery number, your customer's PO number, and the carrier that's transporting the goods. Okay, so we could go ahead and do this step for each shipment that we have going out. So next, let's go ahead and close out of here and go back to the main menu. And let's print out the packing slips for these shipments. So we're going to come to Sales, Deliveries, and Deliveries. So in here, to print out all the packing slips, I'm going to come over to my print icon in the right panel, then go to Record. Go ahead and run this for all the packing slips for today's date. Go ahead and do my print button, and that in part will generate this packing slip report. Okay, so for each customer that I'm dropping off, this will tell them the products they're receiving, the respective lot number of the products, the quantity. If there was anything on back order, that would be indicated herein. Then down here at the bottom, it'll tell them the total number of pallets they're receiving along with their respective weight. Okay, so let's go ahead and close here. Next here, if we had need to generate a formal bill of lading for our delivery, over here in the right-hand panel, under our options, we have this bill of lading function. We can click on that, specify the trailer number, SCAC code, and if we get a carrier's pro number, that can be defined herein. Then it'll also prompt us to specify the freight class of the cargo. We'll go ahead and do a create to generate our bill of lading number. Then we'll go ahead and print that out. Then here's the bill of lading for your goods that are being transported. All right, so let's go ahead and close out of here. Then the next step in the fulfillment process is to go ahead and validate these deliveries. So this would be kind of our ship confirmation when the goods actually leave our facility. So the validation step that we're doing here, it's going to have a twofold purpose. One, it's going to decrement the inventory out of the system. Then secondarily, it's also going to put that inventory in a state such that now we can invoice it. Okay, so to that end, let's go to Sales, Deliveries, and Delivery Validation. Come in here, specify our site with our shipment cutoff here. Then we can come over here and click on the OK button. And that in part will generate a log file for us, indicating to us all the deliveries that have now been validated. All right, we'll go ahead and close page there. All right, so the next step in the process would be to generate all the invoices for those deliveries that we're sending out. And this process is commonly set up as a nightly batch job, but we'll go ahead and manually kick it off here. So under our sales menu, we're going to come to Invoices, then to Delivery Invoice Generation. Specify our selling site, our invoice date. We got our delivery cutoff period here. If we wanted to print out all the paperwork, as we ran this process, we could invoke this printing down here too. Okay. Then we can just come over here to the right-hand panel and click on OK. And that in part is going to generate a log file for us, showing all the invoices that have been generated for those deliveries. Go ahead and close page here. And in part, let's go and validate those deliveries, or excuse me, validate those invoices. So under our sales invoices, we can come to our invoice credit memo validation. And we'll come here and run it basically for all our unposted invoices. Come here, click on OK. So this validation or posting process is going to be what updates our AR subledger and updates the general ledger for all this invoice activity. Go ahead and close page here. Let's go take a look at the invoices under our invoices menu here. Alright, so here are all our new invoice files. You got your invoice number, the customer that you're billing. Over here on the invoicing tab, you have your payment terms. The lines tab here shows you the products that have shipped out, their quantities, and the respective billing price. Then over here on the valuation tab, this kind of gives you summary information on the total value of the sale. Alright, so to print out these invoices, I can come over, click on my printer icon, and go to Record. Okay. And we'll go ahead and print it out for the complete batch for the day. Click on the print. And that in part will generate these invoicing files that we can print out and send to our customer or send to them through email. So you have your invoice, the customer PO, their account number, there's your associated sales order and delivery number. Okay, you got your quantities of products that we're shipping out, their respective valuations. Then you have a summary section giving you the grand total of the sale. All right, so let's go ahead and close that up and close back to the main page. So next here, let's go ahead and generate some payment records against those invoices that we've sent out. So when the customer is going to settle up accounts, we can come under our APAR accounting and into our payment receipt entry. And we'll go ahead and choose the check receipts. Specify this through our HQ site. Over in our Open Items tab, it'll show us all the open invoices that we have on account. So we can choose the invoice that's being paid, confirm the check amount, as well as the check number. Go ahead and create it. Let's create another payment here in this batch. Select that invoice that's being paid. Okay, so quick and easy. We created our payments. So next here, let's go ahead and create our deposit slip and post the batch. So we'll close page here, out to the main menu. And we can come back under APAR accounting, come to our manual remittance, So in here we'll do our new button. Specify the bank account that the funds are going to be deposited into. We'll select our batch number that we just created here from the left list. That will load in all the payments from the batch. So we're posting a batch here of a touch over $3,000. We'll go ahead and create it, then do our post. Once the post runs, we get returned a log file here indicating that deposit slip has been generated, and here's the associated journal entry for the deposit. Okay, so let's go ahead and close page here. So that pretty much takes us all the way through the sales order fulfillment cycle for our orders at the brew house. So next here, let's go ahead and turn our attention back to the tap room facilities. So in this case, if you recall, the tap room placed an order upon the brew house for a certain number of kegs. So when the brew house fulfills those orders and ships the products out, what the personnel at the tap room will do at the time of receiving the beer is they'll book a inner-site purchase receipt. So under our purchasing, let's go to our receipts. So all they'll need to do is they'll do their new button, specify the tap room facility. Then over here in your delivery selection, we have our inner-site delivery. They can go ahead and click on that, and in part click on create, and that will introduce that inventory into their stock. We'll do new for the other tap room facility and bring that inventory in also. Okay, so at this point, let's go ahead and end out to the main menu. So next, at the tap room, to manage their inventory, they're going to want to perform, whether it be a daily or a weekly count of the kegs that they have on hand, to make sure that the inventory that we have in the system is an accurate reflection of what's actually on site. So to do those daily counts, it's very easy. We'll come under our stock menu, go to counts, then to stock count session. We'll do our new button. And come here and we'll do a create, then a generation. Then over here on the list tab, there's our count worksheet. We'll go ahead and tunnel in there. Then this is giving us a reflection of the products that we have on hand, products with the respective lot numbers and their quantities. So in here we could say, the new count on hand is we have 8 lagers remaining, 9 IPAs, and the stouts we have 7 remaining. We can go ahead and do our save, release the inventory, validate it, which will update our inventories on hand, then go ahead and close it out. And now our inventory reports will reflect this new amount of inventory on hand, and it'll generate all the expenses accordingly. Let's go ahead and close page out of here. So next here, we're going to want to record our daily sales at the tap rooms into X3. So there's a lot of different ways that we can accomplish that. One way is through our recurring journals. So under our financials menu, we can come to journals and journal entry. And in here I have a template journal set up that I can copy. This will be for the sales for today. Then over here, I have my revenue accounts, then the cash being collected. I have it for both of my tap rooms with my division code, as well as my product line. So if my point of sale system keeps track of the type of beer that's being sold, I can go ahead and update that accordingly. Update all my dates here. Okay. And that in part will update my books for the revenue and for the respective cash that we collected for the day. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and close page out of here. So finally, there's a variety of different financial report writing reports and inquiries that you can go to in X3 to see the results of all these activities. Let's take a look at a quick income statement under our financials reporting, then here to inquiry. We have this brewery income statement here. Then at any point in time we can just come over here on the calculation button, say OK, and this will give us real-time information. This one's just real simple in nature, but we can fine-tune this to whatever your reporting needs are. Actual month-to-date and the year-to-date figures. Then on any of one of these lines, if I want to see what accounts make up this balance, I can click on the action button and go to detail. Then in here I can pivot it over based upon my account. Okay, and that'll show us the individual GL accounts that make up the balance. And if I subsequently wanted to tunnel down into the GL details, I could click the action button again and go to account, and that will take me to a detailed ledger here. Okay, so that's one useful report that we have in the system. Another thing to take note of, X3 comes equipped with what we call analytical dimensions. So in this particular folder I have dimensions set up such that we can compartmentalize our sales from the brew house versus the tap rooms, dimensions for the different product lines that we have in the different container types. So if I want to get that type of, perform that type of analysis, if I come under financials then to inquiries, I can come here to dimension balances. Then for the accounting period that I want to run it on, I come over here, click on OK, and this will give me a trial balance output. Then I can see down here in my revenue sections here, I have my revenues broken out, whether it was a brew house sale versus one of my tap room sales. Okay, my customer type, if it was a bar, if it was a wholesaler, or if it was a sale through the tap room. For my different product lines here, I have it broken out for my IPAs, lagers, and the stouts. Then whether or not the sale was of, in cases or in kegs. Then I have my respective valuation there. So as you can see, you can perform, all sorts of different analysis. Okay, so that's going to conclude the demonstration for today. I hope that you found this useful, and I hope that you can see how X3 might be a very good tool to help you manage your brewery. If you have additional questions, you can feel free to inbox me, and I'd be happy to facilitate set up a personalized demo and to get the ball rolling for you. So thank you again for your time today, and I hope to talk to you soon.